Heavy periods? Take the pill. Period pain? Take the pill. Acne? Take the pill. It feels like the universal solution for pretty much every hormone-based problem out there, doesn't it? Even if you aren't trying to prevent pregnancy, many of you have likely walked out of your doctor's office with a prescription. But what's actually up with the birth control pill? I'm Naturopathic Dr. Ann Hussain, and this is Face to Face, the Hormone Health Show. In today's episode, you're getting two naturopathic doctors talking about the birth control pill. We're going to help you understand what it actually does, why you might be prescribed it, and how to think through this decision with your health team. I have my own history with the pill. I used to be on it for my irregular cycles, and I didn't feel particularly good on it. I started getting migraines for the first time. My mood wasn't the greatest, and after being on it for a short period of time, when I wanted to come off it, the only other solution my family doctor offered me was basically another kind of pill. And while that might have been the right solution, I really wanted to come off it and see what was actually going on with my health. And it turned out that I had PCOS, or polycystic ovary syndrome, which is why I had the irregular cycles. And to be honest, for PCOS, the pill can be a great treatment because it reduces the risk of something called endometrial hyperplasia, which is the uncontrolled growth of your uterine lining, and for symptoms like acne. And it offers contraception, obviously, if you need it. But because of that negative experience, I did something that you're not really supposed to do in science, which is use anecdotal experience to judge the entirety of the medication group. I started to paint all hormonal contraception with a bit of a negative brush. And looking back, and especially as I progressed in my career, that was totally unfair because there's a time and place for the birth control pill. We have decades of data on it. It's a great contraceptive. It oftentimes is subsidized, especially here in Canada, through our provincial healthcare plans. And it can be a helpful treatment for a lot of different conditions. Yes, it's not for everybody. And yes, it can have side effects, which is the case with pretty much any intervention. But I find that the problem these days, especially if we look at social proof, like reviews and comments online, that's where this conversation is filled with negativity around the pill, for sure. And if we think about it, we rarely go online to write a review for a hairdresser who just did their job. We write a review if they did a terrible job or if they did an amazing job. But most of the time, it's the terrible job, right? So, and for the vast majority of people, the pill just works quietly in the background. They're not posting about it works. So the negative experiences are way more represented online than the neutral ones. And that's what I want us to hold as we hold in mind as we have this conversation today. And that all said, I really want to first introduce my guest, who is a women's health powerhouse, to navigate this conversation about the birth control pill. So, without further ado, Dr. Brittany Schamerhorn is a naturopathic doctor, Menopause Society certified practitioner, and the founder of Ivy Health Clinic in Kelowna, BC. She focuses on women's health, supporting women from PMS to menopause and everything in between. She's known for her down-to-earth, evidence-based approach that helps women feel seen, heard, and empowered with real answers. Beyond her clinical work, she's a mentor and educator to other clinicians, helping them grow their confidence in prescribing and women's health. And until a year ago, I only knew and admired Britt from afar, but since last year, we've pretty much spent time every week together, mostly virtually, but also in person, and I admire her even more for the incredible clinician, leader, and champion of women's health and other women in general she is. Thanks for being here, Britt. I'm so happy you're here.
Oh, thanks for having me. You're going to make me tear up at the beginning.
I feel like we need to tell each other more how much we like and admire each other, And I feel you do a good job of that too, though. Okay, let's dive in. So in the intro at the top of the episode, I mentioned that the pill often feels like it's a universal solution for all the hormonal problems that are out there. Aside from contraception, what are the top reasons you see and we see in the literature that the pill is being prescribed for?
I think you sort of caveated with anything that has to do with hormones or we suspect might have a hormonal influence on it. the pill may be recommended for. And part of that is because the pill will suppress would suppress the ovarian function or have a role or have an influence in that symptom. So sometimes it's one of those where you like treat to diagnose, let's say like migraines or headaches you brought up. If we think it's hormonal, putting them on the pill and then seeing what happens, we would know, right? Like we would find out, are they still happening at the frequency, at the timing we would suspect, or is it now, it's actually has nothing to do with your hormones and we thought it did. Because as we know, and we're learning more and more, female hormones play a role in everything to some extent. And so if there's anything that those are influencing, the pill, I've seen it be recommended. Most commonly, it's going to be like the PMS, the PCOS, the endo, mood concerns. The perimenopause aspect of the pill is very interesting because they'll have some doctors who are like, oh, we can't do it. The only thing we could give you is the pill. So that we're seeing a lot of too. But there isn't, whether it should always be offered is one question, but I feel like there's not really a limit to where it is being offered because they're like, oh, is hormones playing a role? Maybe we try the pill.
And can you help us, let's take a step back, and can you help us understand what it is that the pill is doing? So you already touched on it, like it's suppressing the cycle. Can you take us through that a little bit more and also differentiate between like the combined oral contraceptive pill versus the progestin-only pill?
Yeah. So there's contraception in general, like hormonal contraception in general. There's the estrogen component and then the progestin component, which would be like our progesterone. We use a synthetic version in the pill. And so combined birth control pills have both the estrogen and the progesterone component in it. And then there's a progestin-only pill, which has only a synthetic progestin version. Now, the combined pill, for the most part, its role is in suppressing ovulation. And so basically what the pill does is it suppresses your ovarian function producing the hormones, and like then the pill takes care of your hormone production, so to say. And the bleeding that you have on the pill is actually a drug withdrawal bleed, not a period. I will describe it to patients. I'm like, your period is a secondary response to ovulation. And so we have to think of a period as an ovulation thing, whereas like the bleed that comes on a pill is just we took away the hormones. And so your body responded to that. And the progestin-only pill, those work in, depending on the progestin used, some of them will suppress ovulation. And some of them actually just influence your like cervical mucus and other things for contraception. And that is important when it comes to why are we using it, right? So if we look at, let's say like PMDD, right? We need to actually have like an ovulation suppression because that hormonal shift is what's causing some of those mood changes. And so a pill that does not suppress ovulation is not going to have the same impact for us. And we won't see the mood benefits that come from it. Whereas the progestin-only pill may, in some, like your case, to regulate cycles in PCOS, it might actually help us in that case, and we may or may not need the estrogen component. So that's like the big arching is that we have some that are combined and some that are either only progestin. We never have estrogen on its own.
And follow-up questions. Who might not be a good candidate for the combined pill that we might put on a progestin-only pill? That's number one. And number two is, do we need a withdrawal bleed if we're on something like the combined pill?
So the combined pill, it's the oral estrogen component that we want to watch for. So migraines with aura would be one that those people are not candidates. Smokers, we try to avoid the oral estrogen in those people. And this is where it gets interesting is we used to say over 35, we would generally not recommend. And then we have our perimenopause population where apparently that seems fine. So it's a little bit gray, but really that comes from the estrogen component in the pill. Has a slightly increased clot risk. So if someone already has a history or something else at baseline increase of a clot, we do not want to do the oral estrogen in those people. And then what was the second question?
Do we need a
Oh, the
withdrawal
withdrawal
bleed?
bleed. Yes. Um, Interestingly, no, because the pill itself, and this is going to be, I'm sure you see this too. I get some looks from people when I'm like, you actually don't need to bleed. Um, because when the pill first came to market, and I'm sure you know this, I feel like this is right up your alley. When the pill first came to market, contraception was really like not okay, right? Like society did not love the idea of like female contraception. And so the pill actually came to market to regulate a woman's cycle and to make it predictable. And so we could have the bleed every 28 days or whatever. And the only way to do that was to take control, which then also gave contraception. Then as contraception became okay, we started to like learn more and actually like target it for contraception. Um, but the pill itself is designed to regulate the endometrial lining. Like the reason we would have a withdrawal bleed is for helping that endometrial lining avoid excess growth of the endometrial lining. The analogy I will often use is the estrogen is like the fertilizer on a lawn, helps the grass grow. The progesterone component is like the lawnmower. The pill is designed, it has this like beautiful, like it's designed together where those two play well, where we're not getting too high of a lawn, but we're not also getting too low of a lawn either. And you don't actually have to have a bleed to manage that. Whereas we have to have a bleed for many reasons. We also have the hormone shift to cause it, but we only have progesterone for half of the month, like, or after you ovulate. So we need to bleed to like shed that and restart the whole process. But you don't need to, which for some people is lovely because to not like sometimes bleeding is very annoying and you don't want to do it, which is fair. So to not have a period every month can be freeing for a lot of women. And when we look at some of the symptoms that are caused from the hormone, like that we might be giving the pill from, that time period without the pill can be quite detrimental. And so to keep on it is very helpful. Migraines is a big one where that drop in estrogen actually will trigger migraine. So if they just stay on the pill the whole time, then they don't have that drop. Now, that being said, sometimes the body will have like a breakthrough bleed. And as long as the patient is okay with that and they understand what that might happen, that's fine. I generally will have a patient bleed every 3 months if that's okay for them, but you don't have to follow the pill as it is.
I know I get this question in practice quite a bit as well because especially right now with this weird space and time we live in with medical misinformation being quite rife, people feel like, oh, but menstruation is a way that I'm using quotation marks, get rid of toxins. And I find this such a fascinating line of thinking sometimes of how people's brains work and how information gets disseminated and where some of the negativity around the pill even comes from and taking exogenous estrogens and progestins. Because as you know, medical decision making is really not clear cut. It is complicated and it is messy, and I think historically, and this was definitely the case for me, I think sometimes we feel a little misled when we're put on an intervention without a proper investigation, which is quite common, and without like going through how it works. And you described it quite beautifully with the lawnmower and the fertilizer analogy. I really like that. I've never heard of that one before, and in that way. And also like that your menstrual cycle is actually being suppressed and we're giving you a constant dose of hormones and you're getting a withdrawal bleed, right? Like for me, that was part of the reason. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I never knew that. And this is the case
Yeah.
for a lot of other menstruators as well.
You were saying the how we view the pill and like you're put on it. We have the negative thoughts about the birth control pill. And I think those are misplaced in the sense that we have where we should have the negative thoughts is we have negative thoughts in like not having informed consent and not having a decision or like understanding, right? If you for many, if they understood why they were taking, like why it was being offered to them, if they had the choice, if they could have this conversation about it, many people I think would potentially choose the pill or they would feel better about it. But it's like, this was the theme of last week. I had a couple last week where I'll also say, I'm like, we're just going to use the pill for a hot minute. I'm just going to like put your ovaries in a box. We're going to be like, can you guys just like do what we tell you to do for a hot minute? We're going to work on your nervous system and like manage your stress, have everything over here. And then when we're ready to deal with that box, we will bring it back. But like right now, your life is at capacity and you're like 2 months, 2 weeks out of the month, you're being taken out and you're doing pickup on the other 2 weeks where you're like trying to make up for being off. How about we just like give you 4 weeks for a hot minute, build back, and then we can deal with this, right? Like they're part of this. They understand what they're doing. Or like with PCOS, if there's that conversation on the hyperplasia, like why there's benefits for it, but you're also then in the background working on the disease aspect and what's actually going on. Because I think a lot of times the pill is great symptom management, but it's not always actual disease management. And those are two different things. It should be dealt with at the same time. And if the patient feels like both are being dealt with, it's a bit better. But the negative thoughts about the pill, I think, are actually like targeted because the pill can be great. What's not great is not understanding what you're doing or not feeling like you had a decision in it.
Totally. I love how you put it's symptom management and not disease management. And a lot of people only understand the extent of the disease when they come off it because it was never addressed in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really hard place to be as someone on the receiving end of that prescription. You can feel really unheard and dismissed and like no one really listened to you or assessed you properly. Now, when you're seeing patients, because you're in a province where you can prescribe, you're in BC, and I'm in Ontario where I cannot prescribe, but I have all these conversations all the time because family doctors don't necessarily have the time to have these conversations, especially in a system that is so squeezed currently. Now, when someone comes in with a concern, whether that be heavy menstrual bleeding or endometriosis or period pain in general or PCOS, how are you navigating some of those conversations? I love the example you just gave with let's put your ovaries in a box here and work on the background. What kinds of things are you looking at? What kinds of conversations are you having? Because I think that will also allow listeners and and viewers to really reflect on their own experience and what they can bring to their healthcare team.
Yeah. I always caveat with I'm like, you're probably about to be surprised by the conversation we're about to have. No one comes into the naturopathic doctor wanting a birth control pill or thinking that's there. But I view my role as giving you all the options. I think everyone deserves to know what they're saying yes to, which means like, what are they saying no to? Also, what do we have as backup options? So we will go through everything from like as natural as like herbals to the most invasive, which may be pharmaceuticals, or are we looking for a referral for something else? And then everything just gets put on the table. What can we expect from each of those? Like, what is your goal right now? Like, how can we expect that to come from here? And then which fits your values? Because I think that's a big part that's also missing in healthcare, where I thought about when you said like you wanted to understand what was happening with your body. The pill doesn't fit that value right now, right? You deserve to understand that if we come off the pill, then we don't know what's going to happen. We may have something that's underlying that we have to navigate, that like time away from suppression, say like endo. We know that the longer we don't, if we let endo just go, it might get worse versus actually putting like a bit of a catch on it. But there's also a value in understanding your symptoms. And then on the caveat to that, there's a capacity of life where a lot of my patients who are in like undergrad or school, like right now, not the time. We just need to like function and do it. And they also, that their value is actually in school, so to say, or their education or their career. And that's okay because we understand what we're doing over here. But I just lay it all out. And then I'm like, what fits your goal right now? And if their goal is symptom relief, then a lot of the times the pill is a catch-all and is cheaper. But if they don't want to, that's totally fine. We have other things that work, right? We have other things that can do. It's just like it might be more intensive by you. It might involve more things, and it might not be as guaranteed as the pill would be, but it's also not the pill. So does that work for you? And is that what you want to do? So I just lay it all out. And then some people don't love that because they're like, well, what would you do? Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't know. And then I just try to like walk them through to see what are you hoping to get here? Right? Do you just want to feel better? Do you want to understand? Do you want to see what your body is doing on its own? Do you want to get pregnant? Obviously the pill's not the best option for that. But I don't think there is a one way to do it. And I think for a patient who might feel dismissed by their doctor, a question you could ask is like, what are other options we might have? Or when do we look at another option, or what's making us think this? And it's sometimes just not necessarily questioning the physician, but it's asking them for your understanding of what made my case think this for you so that you can understand. And then, or when would we say this isn't working anymore? And then it's like making sure that you feel informed when you leave that appointment. And because the doctors are so rushed, right? Sometimes they know they're doing the same thing we would do. They just don't have the time to explain it. And if you just potentially ask them, then like they're open to giving that conversation.
Yeah, and that's you hit the nail on the head, right? Like they're doing that assessment, the checks in their brains, because for them, they have an algorithm running through their brain all the time. They're not verbalizing it, and they don't necessarily have the time, and they oftentimes won't think about sharing it either, because for them it's so normal and they've normalized it for themselves. So I think if you as a listener or viewer can ask those questions and any other qualms that you have, that's great, because that prompts them to sort of take a pause and actually talk to you.
Because they're
And the other
assuming
thing,
your values, like, right? They're assuming the goal. But if you're like, actually, I just want to know what's going on. I'm okay if I have acne or this stuff. I want to know. Then that might change. But they are working in a system and working in a way that's like such a symptom management and like pill for every ill type thing, where like that's kind of their natural algorithm, and they're just trying to make you feel better, right? They don't, if your acne is solved, they think they've solved it, versus you might want to just know a bit more on the other side of that. So I think it allows you to actually speak up and hopefully open that point instead of feeling like you have to follow what they tell you to do.
I love how you framed that, because you're right. Oftentimes we assume when really we need to lead with curiosity, what it is that you're hoping to accomplish. Right? We're trying to fix, or a doctor might be trying to fix the problem, whereas you're trying to understand. How do you frame fertility? Like that's where I want to go next. How do you frame fertility and the pill? Because oftentimes people go on the pill for a particular reason, which may or may not be diagnosed at the time, and then they go on the pill and then they come off it, usually at a time where they're trying to conceive. And then they figure out that, oh, maybe I can't conceive as easily as I thought I would be able to. And I didn't think anything was wrong because I was on something that was addressing some of my hormonal concerns that may or may not have been at the forefront.
Mhm.
How, does the pill impact fertility, and how do you talk to patients about this?
That's a great question. And as you were asking it, I was thinking in my head that all of this negative connotation about the pill, if we actually use that just to educate a woman on what the pill is doing, not that it's bad for them, but hey, you only have a regular cycle because you're on the pill. Or this is only happening, like you're not actually ovulating monthly. We have a drug, which like we're controlling the narrative here. Because often I'll ask like, how's your period? How's this? And they're then like 20 minutes into the conversation, they're on the pill. And I'm like, oh, like this isn't like you, like this isn't even you. Like this is the pill, it's influence. And I say that because when it comes to fertility, if a woman doesn't know what's behind the pill, then that's the question here, right? Is the pill is not causing PCOS or endo or whatever. It's just that the pill was masking that and you didn't know it was there. And so the pill was doing its job, but we wanted to get pregnant in March of 2025. And so we stopped the pill in February of 2025 and expected it to happen right away. And then didn't know what was happening behind the scenes. So I think if there is an ability in a woman's life where, similar to where you're like, I'm going to just see what's going on, if you have a time period where you could just come off the pill, and let's say you like, because some people are put on it when they're like 13, right? They've been on it forever, so they have no concept of what their own cycle is. If you're one of those people that is like, I'm going to be, not that we can control it, but like, I want to be pregnant this month, this time frame, then we might want to try coming off a bit earlier just to see what's there and like what are we dealing with, and then you can always go back on it if we're like, yeah, it's regular. You're like, I don't want to get pregnant for a couple of years, but say maybe there is something there, and then it's maybe we have to do a bit more work behind the scenes. And I will usually what I'll have a conversation is like, do you want to have kids at some point, or are you open to having kids? And then if they are, then I will say like, just I'll be like, if you are someone who wants to get pregnant by a certain date, we should probably come off earlier. But if you're someone who's just open to pregnancy by a certain date, then we can come off at that point. And it's just caveating that we don't know if we have been on the pill for a long period of time. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes. And usually like with some questions and some things, we can like make an assumption of what might have been behind the scenes. But if they were using it for symptom management specifically, we might want to unpack that a bit. Because it's interesting where sometimes the pill can enhance, like if you stop the birth control pill right away, let's say that patient who like wanted to get pregnant in March and they stop it in February, there might actually be like a uptick in their fertility because the ovaries get like excited. And so they are more likely to get pregnant that month than they might, or like have a good cycle right after the pill than they might have after like 6 months down the line of not being on the pill. And I think it's just understanding what it's doing and where your goals are at. And unfortunately, everything in today's society is so planned, and we structure and we try to plan everything down to the week. I know me and you are both like that. But fertility is one of those ones where if you know if you know that about you and you have a specific time frame, you might now need to be open to having some like menstrual related symptoms earlier because we're not coming off the pill. Like with that one, we kind of have to pick.
Hmm. Yeah, and in PCOS too, I always bring things back to PCOS just because like that's my primary patient population. In PCOS, we do see, right, like you come off the pill and there is this uptake in fertility because the testosterone lowering effect of the pill is still persisting, and sometimes people do get pregnant after. And I want to talk about something that's a little bit popular and contentious in the in the online space. I want to hear your take on it. What do you think about the post-pill syndrome?
Oh yeah. Oh my God, I haven't thought about that in a long time. Um, I don't want to say it's not a thing because even with like the PCOS, right? Like the reason that that's there is the influence of the pill is there for a little bit longer. And so can we have a drug influence for a little bit of a longer period of time than the drug is being taken? Yes. Is the post-pill syndrome there like 2 years later? No, like it's done. Um, at that point, we've now like unpacked something that was underlying. And I feel like some of the argument for the post-pill syndrome is like, well, I didn't have that before I went on the pill. But also, how has your life changed in the like 10 years you've been on the pill? Are you now a like corporate lawyer who doesn't sleep and is super stressed and there's like a whole other thing going on and that's actually a root of what's happening? Are you started it when you were in your teens and now you are in your 20s and you're drinking more and those are the quote unquote toxins happening, not the pill. Um so I don't want to say it's not a thing because there can be that post-drug influence, but it's not to the capacity that the online world makes you think it is. Because honestly, if it was, it'd be way easier to fix than the online world would be, and no one would have programs to sell because that would just be Easier.
My answer is similar to yours. Yes, there's a little bit of an influence. Do we need to call it a syndrome? I don't know. It's just coming off a medication, and you're likely
I
going
don't know.
to.
Do we call like a grogginess in the morning from like taking your sleep aid, like a post sleep aid syndrome? No, you're just drowsy. Like you have that little bit of lethargy from the pill that's like from your sleep aid the night before. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very normal to feel slightly differently, and you're for your body to adjust after being on a medication, and that's a normal response. And I think people think they need to do something differently when they come off, and they might, don't get me wrong. But oftentimes, I think we just need to give it a little bit of time to understand what is your cycle doing on its own before we intervene. Because my response usually when people ask or patients ask is, do I need to do anything specific once I come off the pill? So if we're working toward fertility, hopefully we like already have you on a prenatal. We have you on the foundations. We've been working on, your general health, augmenting egg quality, especially if you are a little bit older and that sort of thing. But beyond that, we don't know what we don't know, and the only way to know is coming off it and seeing what happens.
and I think we talked a little bit about this before, but the stuff that you can always do is not exciting, where it's the basics, right? It's like, hey, well, if you want it was like sleep, manage your stress, the nutrition, like all of those will still play a role, even like if it is something hormonal happening in the background, even if you like if fertility is your goal. And so when there's something that you want to focus on, like, oh, I want to come off the pill, like those pillars are like the same ones all the time. And if you look at most health programs that are available online or that people like, that's what they're doing is they're just trying to promote that. And you just take a step back. So if a woman feels like they want to take some initiative and take charge, which is very valid, right? Especially if they've been on the pill and they felt like they've opened they feel like their eyes are open and they understand. And then it's like, okay, well, don't overcomplicate something until we know what's happening. But what we do know is that these things all play a role on your hormone system. So no matter what is going on, what can we focus on over here? And I think we inherently, women are like problem solvers and fixers. And so we want to find something to target and to do. And so if we can take it back to something that will make a bigger influence overall, instead of taking this like liver support supplement to detox the estrogens from the pill, which is not a thing, let's caveat from, but like let's focus on your sleep and your stress management, or like, let's try to get some activity in. And then they still feel like they're a part of the process and not just sitting back, no one's acting, but like, and waiting to see what happens. Cause that's the part is that by the time they've taken the choice to come off, they want something from this. They want to do something. And we should take that momentum and try to use it in a useful way.
Totally. And this is probably a good place to say you're allowed to change your mind at any point for whatever reason, right? Like it goes back to the value piece that you were sharing. If you go on the pill and then a year later you're like, "Oh, I want to come off it and see what happens." Totally fine. If you want to come off it and then you're like, "I want to see what happens," and then make another decision to go back on it, also fine. Or use a different contraceptive, also
Yes.
fine, right? I think we sometimes get stuck that the decision is forever, but really
Right.
it's not, because we need to also see if it's a good fit for you after you go
Yeah.
on it.
And I think I've had many where they have been on it for a while, they come off and then they do choose to come back on, but now that feels more informed, right? Now they understand like, oh, actually my pill was managing my acne really well. And the mental impact of me having acne and how that was influencing my confidence and how I was coming out in the world and the like stress of like thinking about it all the time, the pill actually I was better on the pill. Or I'm taking like hundreds of dollars worth of supplements to try to fix my acne that's not working and I'm still getting it. The pill was worth like now they understand why they're doing it and the value it's bringing to them. And I think that alone is super valuable, right? Like now they don't view it as like, oh, I have to. They're choosing to go back on this.
Yeah, the choice is so important. The conversations we have in our practices, so important. They are really the difference between someone feeling good and positive about their medical experience and not, or feeling dismissed about it. Similar to what you're saying, I think the contraceptive piece is also a big component of that, especially if you are someone who's a little bit more prone to irregular cycle, especially like if you're an athletic person, or if you have something like PCOS, or if just generally stress really derails your menstrual cycles quite easily. Like we have different thresholds at which our menstrual cycles will be derailed, right? Like mine is quite sensitive. Anytime I travel, my cycle is delayed. Anytime I'm super stressed, my cycle is delayed. Yeah, I have PCOS, but like my management strategies just don't work as well. And there's a few factors there that are influencing that, right? And the contraceptive piece is the one that I think is the most prevalent in my practice, where patients are like, I want to come off it, but I don't want to get pregnant. How do you navigate that conversation? Because naturally, there's nothing that's going to work like hormonal contraception or like a copper IUD, maybe, right?
Yeah. I think that's a great yes, because any like reproductive woman, which includes my late 40s patients, just those listening, um, do we have any form of contraception on board? And then what, like, are we comfortable with being pregnant? Like, how much would pregnancy change your future if you got pregnant? And that's what I will ask them, to kind of like reframe it for them. And I'm like, how comfortable are you if you got pregnant right now? And if they're like, oh, that would screw up, like it helps them put into perspective the priority of maybe their viewpoint on a form of contraception or something, and then actually what it's giving to you. Cause I think where it's sort of where, like you said, it's happening in the background, where if it's working really well, it feels good. You don't realize that you've been doing it and taking it and like the comfort and value of not getting pregnant until you're actually like, oh my gosh, if I actually got pregnant, that'd be really bad. I'm like, okay. Are you comfortable with using like a barrier method, like condoms or something like that? Would you and your partner? And they're like, oh God, no. I'm like, "Hey, well, again, here are your options. Like where do you see yourself? Right? What works for you? And then there's certain demographics, specifically as we get older too, where actually the health change, like impact of being pregnant. And so as we get old, like into our late 40s, it's actually quite detrimental to get pregnant. Even if you were to terminate, there's like risk associated with that whole event that can derail your health as well. And just putting those into context. And I just give you info. And then what feels good for you. I have no judgment. I don't care. Like I care about the person and them feeling good. And then whatever that choice is, I'm happy to help facilitate. And right, we just have a conversation on safety and risk and understanding. And if they can then choose from there. But the contraception piece is often one that I think people value a lot, but they don't know they're getting from it. Like they'll be like, oh yeah, no, I can't get pregnant right now. Like I'm going to graduate, or like, no, like I have, like, I know. I'm like, okay, like, are we going to do a vasectomy? Are you going to like, is there, no. I'm like, oh, we're just going to go the pill. I'm like, okay. like, like a 20-minute conversation to get back to where we started, but they now understand, like they're taking it for that. Or if they're, say, done having kids, or like it's going to be a long period of time, are we going to look at an IUD or some form of like longer form of contraception? But the contraception piece is very, we forget that value from the pill. The social media, like media inquiry, and like all of the bad press about the pill and exogenous estrogens and suppressing all these things, it's taken away from like the true value of contraception, and a woman to be able to not only decide, like to control her family planning, but to also control some of her, like the influence of the hormones in her life. And that is, like you said, it is completely fine to make that decision. And for some reason, we're like, yeah, cool, you can decide when you get pregnant, but you can't decide if you're going to have acne or not. Sorry. Like that's not fair.
Yeah, there's a risk and benefit to everything, including not doing anything, right? And sure, like I think we all like people having menstrual cycles. Like from my standpoint, and I know from your standpoint, we want people to have agency, whatever that looks like for them. And that's the conversations we're having, and we want to feel good about it. Same thing, I don't have any judgment about people using contraception or not using contraception, or if they want to do like a more fertility awareness based sort of
Yeah.
method where they're tracking their menstrual cycles. But if you are at a time of life where that's just not possible for you, or it's happening inconsistently, and you also don't want to use barrier protection, then these are the conversations that help you move in the direction that you want your life to go in.
Yeah.
And that's not a small thing. That's a big thing.
Yeah. And I think that's an important point you made, because sometimes when I have these, I'm like, I'm not, because there's so much like, I'm not a pill pusher. Like it's not,
Totally.
I'm not gonna, right? Like it's not like, oh,
Although this
they're like,
conversation makes us sound like pill pushers.
that's what I'm like. It's not like I think we're both just being like, hey, just get a chance to think on it. And then because of the societal influence, so many people feel bad for the decision to choose to take it. And I think that's where I'm like, I feel like I'm defending those people and giving those women the permission to do that if that's what they decide to do, because that is completely fine. Just like if you want to come off and see what happens, totally game. Love that for you. Like there's no, and health wise, yes, maybe there's some time frames which one choice is better than the other. But like we're not pill pushers, but it's just like, let's not judge people for a decision that they make.
Totally. Speaking of risks and benefits, I do want to talk a little bit about some of the side effects of the pill that are a little bit more common than not. What are some of those that are reported, but also that you see in clinical practice?
I'm going to say the like quote unquote obvious of if the estrogen level is really high, which you might be given at first if there's some bleeding or just symptom management, it can feel quite nauseous. They just like, it doesn't feel good. Most side effects from the birth control pill can be adjusted by either adjusting the estrogen dose or the type of progestin that's used. We have a handful of different progestins that we'll counter with. And so if someone doesn't feel good on this one, mood-wise, then maybe this one feels better. Mood is definitely going to be a common one where women they don't feel like themselves, or there can be a depressive bit that comes in where on the like, I'm going to anti-pill for like, not anti-pill, but like on those to advocate for maybe not, is your mood and you are changed and influenced by your regular cycle, right? And if you're on the pill, you don't get that. And so if a woman is very in tune to her cycle and the changes of her menstrual cycle, I find those women do not like the pill, because they really like how feeling the differences of their hormones in their body through the month, and they know that about themselves. And depending on the like personality of that person, the pill can drastically influence that. Like the first half of your cycle, when your estrogen rises, you're super social, you're like more extroverted, like that, like it is like working for you. And to lose that, if that's like something that was very strong for that individual, if we suppress that with the pill, they really miss it. And that's where people are like, I just felt more quiet and bland. So mood is a big one. A lot of the times, again, we could maybe change up the pill, but mood's a big one. It's hard because when you say that, I'm like, oh, everything could just be shifted. Like we could just try a different pill. Like if we need a pill, we could just try a different one. Usually it's a side effect that can be adjusted, I would say.
Yeah, like there's some vaginal dryness that comes up, or libido changes that can come up. Um, for me, it was definitely the mood. As a chronically tired person, I found that it really subdued the first half of my menstrual cycle. I can say that in retrospect too, right? Like some things you don't know when they're happening, and then it's not until you come off. And I find that the vaginal dryness and the libido aspect,
Yes.
oftentimes is when patients come off, they're like, oh, I now have cervical mucus and I feel more lubricated and I feel like I have a little bit of oomph in my step. And I think that's quite common with a lot of interventions. And going back to something we said earlier, it's not until you come off the pill and are paying attention now and seeing what your new normal is that you really identify with that and can pinpoint it and see what's
Mhm.
happening in your menstrual cycle. We talked a lot about nuance, and I think that's the thing that's missing in conventional healthcare, and that's where women feel unheard, and that's where people slip through the cracks and conditions slip through the cracks also, right? Like if you had really heavy bleeding and you come off the pill and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I had adenomyosis,
Yes.
because now you had something that was managing the heavy bleeding or the abnormal intermenstrual or interperiod bleeding, with the tool. Or maybe you had an endometriosis or you had period pain and it was severe and now you're on the pill and the period pain gets better and then you come off, you're like, oh my gosh, I have endometriosis, or could I have endometriosis? And that's a hard thing and hard place to be, I think. And as someone who has been there, I can definitely relate to that, because it wasn't until I came off the pill I'm like, oh, I have PCOS and it actually runs in my family. But because we didn't know as much about it at the time, our diagnostic criteria, our science around it has changed so drastically in the last like couple of decades, right? Like we know so much more than we ever did, and we have so much more awareness. And even at the consumer level or at the patient level, we know so much more because of the globalization of information. So I shared a little bit of my story on this podcast and in this episode. I'm wondering if you can share a little bit of your story and how you ended up doing the work you're doing, because you just created this beautiful clinic. It's an interdisciplinary clinic with medical doctors and other allied healthcare providers and yourself and naturopathic doctors. Tell us how you got here to supporting women and being such a champion.
Yeah, it's interesting because through school, I was like, I don't really know if I want to do women's health. Like, I'm like, I don't know. Just like, to be honest, I was like, I think it's boring. I was like, I don't know. Just like because the menstrual cycle is so repetitive in a way. And I was like, I don't know. I, but I love the women. And so I think that's where it wasn't the condition. It wasn't the thing. It was, and when I look at it in the big picture, women do such cool stuff. And like they have such important roles in society, and they are doing such great things. And then I would see them get like completely derailed by their cycle or this like perimenopause or whatever it was. And the more I learn and the more I educate, it's like it's women in leadership, it's women in these roles. Like that's what happens. That's how society changes. That's how the world changes, is like putting women in positions of power without them burning out, so they can feel good, so they can still have their family life, they can do like, so they can do it all in a sustainable, healthy way. That's how the world gets better. And so I'm like, I can't do that. I do not know anything about the just, like, no. But what I can do is I can help the woman who knows how to do that feel better. And so it came from this, like, they're going to form the society and the like world that my children are going to grow up in. And so I need them to feel better so that they can go do their work. And then it's like you get to see the cool things that come from it. And I also, on the collaborative side, it's like a community. I never think I know the answer. It's always like asking questions and having the resources and that team, and to be able to have a space where someone can just come in and know they're taken care of. And that when I was designing the space, I was thinking about uh, the person who is responsible for their family's healthcare, right? Like that, whoever that individual is, sometimes it's the dad, more often it's mom, but like that person being like, I'm going to call around. Who can I help? How can I do? Like, I just wanted to be like, you know what? We got you. Like, we got you. We're going to help you feel good. And then we can help manage the rest of your family, which includes the husband and those people and like everything. And if we can't, we will find where to send you. Like, I don't have to know it all, but I just know how to help my people and then where to send those people. And it just kind of grew from there. But for me, it was this, and I think where it comes from being able to take permission to take things, is my period when I grew up was horrible. Horrible. Like I was like I remember like leaking on my grandparents' car once. Like I'm pretty sure the truck is still staying because I have that truck still. And like it just was not doable. And then when I was going to school, I kind of had to make the choice of, do I navigate this or do I focus on school? And I like was on the pill and I had an IUD during that time period because it managed those symptoms. And yeah, there was some of those like side effects from it that came, but it was that like bigger picture decision. And instead of it being this like linear thing, you have to look at the whole picture. And then I would see people that would come into my office and feel guilty for their decision, or that they heard from blah, blah, blah that they shouldn't do that, but that person's not living their life. That isn't understanding the big court case they have next week that's taking a bigger role, that actually has, like, if we think about that, those people who are making big changes, they have big responsibilities, and sometimes not having a painful period is so significant they can't do that. Um, and that like long answer, that's where it came from.
That answer though, because you've sort of summarized the point of this episode, that it is okay to make the decision that you want to make for yourself to live a good, healthy life and have agency over that. Because to your point, women are community builders. They are the raisers of humans. They make very different kinds of leaders than we have historically seen. And we want, like, I know you're on a mission and I'm on a mission to really have more women in roles of leadership where they can do more things without being held back by their physiology, by their symptoms, by things that they have normalized for themselves, because society and the world have normalized it for them, right? Like, we want women to thrive as much as possible. And this is why we're having this conversation, because whether you choose the pill or don't choose the pill, that's totally up to you. And I hope you have better conversations with your health team, because those are the people you should be making these decisions with. And I hope you can have conversations like this that have nuance. Like, what is it that you're hoping to achieve? How long do you do this for? What other options do you have available for you? And then come to a decision. And then you're also allowed to change your mind at any point for whatever reason. Right? Like,
Yes.
I think the permission piece, like you were saying earlier, is an important one, because we sort of start living by these rules and sometimes we don't even know where these rules come from. So as we wrap up, high level sort of summary, if someone is going to their doctor and they have now been prescribed a pill, what kind of questions can they ask?
I think the 3 that you caveated right there are perfect. Like, how long should I be? What am I what am I expecting from this? What is the goal of this? Like, why am I taking this pill? How long am I gonna be on it? And are there other options for me? I think those 3 very simply, it you don't need to be questioning them from a negative standpoint or questioning their decision. It's just for your understanding, right? Like, what am I looking to see as in symptom improvement? Like, why was this my option? Is this something I'm taking forever? Is this like, when do we readjust? And I think you also have the time to take a second and look into that for you and make sure that feels good. And if it doesn't align with your values, you are allowed to also say that and say, are there other options because of this? And I would also not like question your values in a negative way, but question where that value comes from. Like, is it a value because social media tells you it's a value that you don't take the pill? Or is that you actually want to know about your own body? Because those are 2 different things. And so just actually making sure it's an internal decision.
I love that. Here at Face to Face, we're big into learning and growth. And you in real time just went through my brain as I was learning about the pill and changed my mind about it, because I thought it was the worst thing because I felt awful on it. Now, is there anything that you can think of, a concept, belief, or a strategy within your professional expertise that has shifted for you over time, or that you've changed your mind on?
Yes, this one is currently happening in my world right now. And it's the concept of iron deficiency and the role in PCOS and endometriosis, and something called ferroptosis, which is that potentially part of their mechanism of damage is too much iron. And so I have wondered on, when we are trying to have this higher threshold of iron, are we potentially working against that for that woman? So that is I don't know. I have read some interesting stuff over the past week, and I am open to changing my mind on how I do things moving forward.
Okay, I'm curious to hear more about this. We'll take that conversation offline. Uh, but I love that because science will change. You know what I mean? Our understandings do become more nuanced, which is why medical decision making can also be so hard, because for someone, the pill might be a very clear-cut answer for many different things, whereas for someone else, we might be like, we're balancing risk against something else, and all of that is quite a normal experience. And we both have learned that through clinical experience, I think, over time. Where can people connect with you, learn from you, find you, or work with you?
The easiest spot is probably Instagram. You'll tag it, but at drbritt.schamerhorn.nd. And then that's probably that's where I'm most active, is going to be on there.
Okay, we'll throw that link into the show notes. Britt, thank you so much for being here and sharing all your knowledge and expertise. You have been listening to Face to Face, the Hormone Health Show. Whichever phase of life you're in, you deserve answers, you deserve care, and you deserve to feel well. Make sure to subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcasts or at facetoface.ca.